The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a game I like. I know. Thank you. Really brave stuff I'm admitting to here. However, it goes deeper than that actually, because not only do I like this game, but I consider it to be one of the most important games I played my entire life. Now, I thought it'd be nice to talk about this because whenever I do one of these channel revamps that inevitably end after just one video, I always struggle to think of what video I should make first. Considering that I feel like I've exhausted the meta commentary on my abusive relationship with YouTube, I needed something a little different. And you know, I just said that I'm done making Breath of the Wild videos on my channel, so why not do it anyway? Also, it's the 2-year anniversary or something. Now, before we begin, I do have to say that this isn't a review. The topics I will be talking about here are more about what I was going through at the time of playing the game and, you know, how it made me feel and other such mushy stuff. So if you came here for a 3-year late review on Breath of the Wild, I'm sorry, but that isn't what this video is. That being said, let's actually get into the real video. I started playing this game thinking it wasn't really going to be as important to me as it was. In fact, of the 2 games I bought with my Switch, Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, I expected Odyssey to be the one that took up most of my attention. To be honest, I'm not really sure what clicked with me about the game. I think it might have been that it was just easy to play, I guess. And I don't mean that in a it wasn't challenging sense, because no, what I mean is it was easy to just pop into the game and fuck around for a couple hours on stream. Also, yes, I did stream this game, if that wasn't clear. I guess it kind of doesn't really matter why the game captivated me. What matters more is what happened once I was captivated. You see, this playthrough lasted a long time. 28 separate streams, the shortest of which lasted only 13 minutes, which I still don't understand what happened there, but the longest lasted 8 hours. Also, given that I don't like to play exactly one game on stream at a time, I like to mix things up, these 28 streams got stretched out across a whole year. And a lot happened in that year. Some of it good, some of it not so good. However, as much of a roller coaster that year was, there was one constant, and that constant was Breath of the Wild. When I started playing Breath of the Wild, it was during a weird in-between period in my life. I had come to the realization that college really wasn't working out for me, which thankfully my parents were supportive of. However, even though I tried my hardest, I could not convince them that I was going to be the biggest Let's Player on the internet, and that's what should be taking up all my time. They told me I would need to get a job, which I eventually did. And you know, it wasn't too bad. I mean, at least it wasn't on my first day that there was both a knife fight and a robbery on the same night. A robbery which involved the guy lighting a fire in the store as a distraction, by the way. So, you know, a little bit of an ill omen to start off a job with. Soon after that, though, they would have me working these ridiculous shifts, some going as late as midnight, which really isn't that bad in and of itself. I can handle that. The ridiculous part comes, though, when you consider the fact that, like, 2 days later, they would have me waking up for shifts at like 5 a.m. Also consider, I didn't have a car at the time, so I'd have to walk to work at like 4 a.m. I don't know if any of you have walked to work through a city at 4 a.m., but it gets pretty spooky to say the least. The spookiest time I remember was when I walked through a police crime scene where a guy got shot. That was a little stressful, to say the least. Despite all this, I streamed when I could. But as time went on, you can tell that I was getting more and more exhausted. I often was complaining. I barely had any energy to entertain. I was just overall more negative. The only reason I kept streaming was because it was one of the only ways I had to unwind. My friends had all either moved away or were just too busy to hang out regularly, so it was either stream or just sit around and do nothing. So I streamed. And as time went on, my work schedule got more and more cluttered, and it became harder and harder to find time for streaming. There were times where weeks would go by without a stream, which may not sound like a big deal to some of you, but considering that streaming was my main hobby, it meant pretty much having my life dominated by my job. A job which caused me stress, exhaustion, and maybe even depression. By the end, it wasn't really an uncommon occurrence for me to cry myself to sleep at night. Sometimes these episodes even happen while at work. My life was consumed by a job I hated, and that needed to change. I decided this shit would not follow me into 2019, so I put in my 2 weeks, and I finally left on December 30th, 2018. Given that I wasn't working on 5 hours of sleep at all times, I was actually able to commit to being an internet funny man. I mean, there wasn't an immediate noticeable shift in my content, but I was less negative, I had more energy, and I think most importantly of all, I was enjoying doing it more. I believe the difference between content with passion behind it and content without is massive, even when the content itself is relatively simple. When I was working back at my job, I was unable to really put my heart into making anything, really. But once I quit and was able to feel positive emotions again, I was ready to give it my all. That started paying off when I started to see regulars coming back to watch my streams. Some only watched for the Breath of the Wild streams, and that's fine. But others stuck around and still come around to this day. I started making content on the internet in 2012, and it was only now, nearly 7 years later, in 2019, that I finally started forming a community. It's small, but it's mine. I'm thankful for everyone who sticks around and watches. And it started with Breath of the Wild. I hit affiliate while playing Breath of the Wild. I developed into a better entertainer while playing Breath of the Wild. And best of all, I began to form a community while playing Breath of the Wild. But all of this didn't really register with me at the time. It wasn't until over the course of the next year while editing those streams into highlights that I finally noticed what that series truly meant to me. I went back and listened to all of those streams. All 106 hours, 32 minutes, and 13 seconds of them. I re-experienced it all a second time. The good and the bad, the highs and the lows, I got to see it all from a new perspective. It had been so long going back to some of those first streams, I forgot about the state I was in, and how unhappy and exhausted I was when I wasn't able to give it my all. Then later, how happy I was once I had began giving it my all, and how I was being rewarded for that effort. It really put into perspective how much this truly means to me. And yes, my channel may be pretty small at the end of the day. And yes, sometimes I make fun of my viewers, but believe me when I say that you all make me truly happy. It's strange, because at the end of the day, it didn't need to be Breath of the Wild that helped me realize all this. Could have been anything, really. I don't attribute me reaching affiliate or starting a community solely due to Breath of the Wild. I think anyone who puts in the effort to make something good will gain an audience eventually, and you don't need to have any sort of magical game to draw in that audience, just to drive to make something good. I guess I just feel this connection to Breath of the Wild because it was just there throughout all of it. It didn't necessarily teach me these things, but it just happened to be the game I was playing while I learned them for myself. It's a time capsule documenting both the highs and lows throughout an entire year of my life. I know not to take all this YouTube and Twitch stuff for granted now, because there may come a time when I won't be able to make stuff anymore. And unlike before, I now know how much that is worth. So I'm going to stick to making these videos, and I'm going to stick to streaming these games, because it's what I love doing. And you know, maybe some of you will consider joining me along the way. But either way, I'm going to have fun doing it. Hey, so it got a little serious there in the end. Thought I would take this time in the end here to relieve some tension. I got some Zelda jokes. I thought they would be good, appropriate for the situation. Let's see. Recently, I was playing Zelda on the SNES. It really was a link to the past. Hey, it's pretty good. Let's see. YouTubers love The Legend of Zelda. There's almost always a link in the description. Music's getting a little loud. Okay. What did Zelda suggest to Link when diplomacy didn't work? Try force. I don't think they can hear me anymore. Okay. Well, I guess bye.